You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman. Dear listener, how did you do on analogy questions like this one on the SAT? Elmo is to PBS as blank is to National Public Radio. I'm going to give you a second to come up with the answer, and keep in mind that Steve Inskeep is still working on his Julia Child impression. Okay, time is up, and let's be real. This one was easy. It's Ira freaking Glass. He's the host and EP of This American Life, which has been on the air for more than 30 years. Peabody's a Pulitzer. He's got them all. His work is in the Library of Congress, for Pete's sake, and he's coming to the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham this weekend on Saturday, January 24th, to share some of his secrets. The show is called An Evening with Ira Glass, 7 Things I've Learned. And Ira Glass joins me now on Soundside. Thank you so much for being here.
Very nice to be here.
So, do you like
Elmo? So I am our Elmo. I embrace that.
I wanted to know if you like that comparison, or do you prefer like a Mr. Rogers or a Cookie Monster?
No. I definitely like Elmo of the 3. Animal would be my first pick, of course, but like Elmo is fine.
Rock's much harder, I would say, than any of those options. Can I just ask a little bit about your icon status? I know that's maybe an awkward question for you, but do you remember a time when you first realized that This American Life had reached like household name status? And what happened when you realized that?
I mean, I don't feel like we are at household name status. There's a lot of households. There's a lot of places I go where nobody seems to know who I am. Like,
really?
I guess for public radio listeners, like I think like they know who we are for sure. But that isn't the whole country. It's a big, big country. So, I think that to answer your question, like, I mean, really, like the people who know the show, it really is like not everyone, but understanding just how many people know the show, like it's really just occurred to me like in the last 5 or 10 years, like where I'll meet somebody who seems so famous to me and they know who I am. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You told Rachel Martin that you think people think you are a lot nicer than you actually are because of This American Life. That was on her show Wildcard with Rachel Martin.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about that, like awareness of the perception of you and how it has changed the way you move through the world. Or maybe it hasn't.
It hasn't really changed the way I move through the world. I mean, on the radio, I'm playing a edited, better version of myself, but a version of myself which has my exact same taste. Do you know what I mean? Like the stuff I like is the stuff that's on the show. But no, like we're in production and things, can take too long to make and you just feel tired and grumpy or I do. And like I feel like I'm not awful, but I do have a side that isn't just like a nice empathetic person hearing people tell their stories. And if I didn't have that side, that would be really weird.
So you're coming to Bellingham on Saturday. Can you just give us a little taste of what that is going to be like? I know it's, 7 things that you've learned. Maybe, we don't want to give all 7 away, but maybe one of the things you've learned?
I mean, honestly, 7 things I've learned is just like the title I had to put to the show because I needed a title that would sound like, oh, that sounds like a thing. Maybe I'll go to that. But really, like the entire show is just an excuse to tell a bunch of stories that are like fun to tell on stage. Like really, like it's just like a bunch of stories that could be This American Life stories if they were just on the radio. And for some of them, I use video, and for some of them, like it's just me standing there talking, and then for a lot of them, it's me with tape and music, so it sounds and feels just like the radio show. But basically, it's basically like an evening like our radio show, except I'm standing there.
How does that feel to you when you get to do that? I mean, you've been doing these for years. I've seen you present one of your shows before in the past, and it's so fun to see you taking in how the audience is taking it in, if that makes sense. Like, and I imagine that just like us here at KUOW, you're mostly in these little hermetically sealed boxes speaking to yourself and a microphone all day. How does your storytelling change when you get that audience interaction?
I mean, it's so nice. Like, it really is the opposite of the experience of being on the radio, where you literally are in a completely silent room by yourself, pretending you're talking to somebody, And you sort of are talking to somebody, but you're really more talking to the idea of somebody when you're talking, which is just such a weird thing to perform. And all you like for me, like I really do think like, am I doing this okay? Am I doing this okay? There's like a lot of doubt. Whereas in front of an actual room full of people, it's just so much easier to connect and just talk, and it just feels great. I like being on stage, and like I enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
Can I ask you some industry type shop talk questions for a little bit? Are you okay with that?
Totally.
Because I get a lot of people asking me these days, just on the street, is NPR okay because of defunding? And I get a lot of folks asking that in a way that I think they're asking about KUOW specifically, and I can give them that view of things. But they're also asking kind of like system-wide. And you interact with a lot of stations all over the country.
I do.
And I'm curious, what is your vibe on how is public radio doing after defunding and everything else?
I mean, stations like KUOW, if I remember right, KUOW has made up in donations the amount that the federal government stopped giving.
Yeah,
right?
the one-time surge, which we, are kind of with bated breath wondering what's going to survive, how much of that was emotional giving and how much is going to stay. But yeah, it was a huge response.
Yeah, there are a number of stations where listeners stepped up the way they did at KUOW, and really, like this year, they don't face any shortfall. But that's very much the minority. And it seems like most stations are taking some kind of hit. Even big stations with like audiences that are very loyal, you see stations taking a hit. And what that means at the bigger stations, like in the big cities like Seattle and Los Angeles and New York and Chicago, that generally means like the stations, lost like 5% or so of their budgets, which is like not great. Like it's painful, but anybody who's run a little business or big business, like 5%, it's not an existential threat. Do you know what I mean? Like you're still in business, you still have most of your budget, you still have most of your employees, and so like some people end up getting fired is what it means, and like some things that the stations are doing can't continue. That's at the big stations. At the medium stations, like the percentages are bigger. And there really are like projects that I've heard about and shows and podcasts and stuff that have ended that I was talking to somebody who works for Vermont Public Radio, which is like a very healthy, like they do all kinds of great stuff, and they really have had to cut back on actual like things that you can hear on the air, that you would notice if you were a listener. And then the people who are the worst hit are the tiny stations. And by those, I mean, like, there's stations in Alaska, where they're serving a community that's very remote. So they're serving a community of a few thousand people. And so there's no like advertising base. You couldn't make that work as a commercial station. Nobody could. There aren't enough people to advertise to generate the kind of revenue to have a radio station. And even if everybody in town would donate to the public radio station, it still would like barely make it go. And so all those stations were really surviving with, 50%, 70% of their budgets came from the federal government. And, with the idea that it's important for people to have like a station that like if there's an emergency, there's a local something there to do, to that people can see. And so those are the stations that are really the most threatened, and probably some of them will not survive.
What does that feel like to you to see that happen, having been in public radio since, 1978? It's like your first job, right? You've been in this system forever, and you've seen some really amazing expansion, and it's still huge audiences that tune in to shows like yours every single week. And at the same time, we are seeing this massive upheaval and the clawback of funds. What does it feel like to you to see this change?
Like, not to be entirely negative, like the encouraging thing is just how healthy public radio still is despite that. Like, public radio is just unimaginably more popular now than it was when I first worked for NPR in Washington. When Morning Edition didn't exist yet, public radio didn't have a satellite. The shows were distributed basically over the phone, so it sounded like you were like listening over the phone to the shows. Like the satellite happened in 1980. Public radio began in the early 1970s. I started there in 78. Like the audience of All Things Considered, I think was 1 million people when I joined.
Oh, wow.
It's just like, it's so much more popular. It's so much better known. Like it's just so much more of a force in American life. And so like that is still happening. It's just hard to see these stations that were providing a service go out of business, and it's hard to see that just the various things that were good were lost. I mean, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which went away, one of the ways in which it was important is that it was funding shows when they were starting, and so our show. Like, we didn't get our original money from them, but when we were trying to grow from being a local show in Chicago to a national show, there came a point in our second year where we got a $350,000 grant from them. That $350,000 spread out over 3 years. And without that, I don't know if we would have made it to year 4 or 5. You know what I mean? Like that was the money that actually like made the show happen in those early years. And then that's really the end of the money we ever got from the federal government, like was back in 1998, I think was the last time. And then the money did what it was supposed to, is that it got us on our feet. And then basically we were supported by the stations that run us, and then the people who do those little, the little messages, the ads at the end of the show, that we read saying brought to you by. Like it all kind of worked the way it's supposed to. Fresh Air, the same thing. Like I've heard Terry Gross talk about this, that CPB basically took them from being a local show in Philadelphia to being this national program that serves everybody and is such an incredibly special and original show. So like without CPB there to do that, I think it's going to be harder for new shows to start. That said, one of the problems in public broadcasting and public radio in particular is that there hasn't been that much innovation, even with the CPB. And for somebody like me who I really believe in the mission of public broadcasting, one of the disappointments of seeing the way things have rolled out over the last 20 or 30 years, but especially since podcasting, is that if you want to innovate in audio, you don't do it on public radio now. And I mean, this is kind of to the side of your question, but that was true even before public radio lost its federal funding.
What happened, do you think? What happened to change that when, you used to have an environment where somebody like you could make this scrappy show and then go and sell it to all these different stations and be doing this wildly experimental stuff? What happened to kind of lock us into public radio being risk adverse, do you think?
I mean, it was always risk averse. When we were going on the air in 1995, it was hard to talk station. It wasn't hard, but we understood that it was unusual for stations to pick up something new. For any radio station to put something new on the air, they have to take something off the air. And anything that's on the air right now already has an audience which likes it. And so they're going to get complaints anytime they put something on the air. So it's just always been a problem. And then to get station directors to try something weirder or something that's very different from anything they have, which our show definitely was when we started, that's a real challenge. And so, so that was always, that was always a problem. And then there were a few stations that were very much interested in experimentation and trying new things. WBZ, where our show came from, was like that. BUR is like that. WNYC is like that. On the West Coast, I feel like KUOW has really tried to make shows. KCRW in Los Angeles was really a big model for that. But that's a handful of stations out of a 500 station system. So that's been a disappointment. And then podcasting has, there's just so much activity and money in podcasting, even though the money is now less than it used to be. But people feel oh, I can understand how to start a podcast. And when you do a podcast, you don't have to talk radio station program managers into picking you up. You just have to kind of make enough of a presence in the market that people know you exist. Now that turns out to be incredibly hard and an almost insurmountable problem for almost everybody making a podcast. But it's a slightly different problem than talking some random program director in Des Moines into picking up your show.
I do feel like since the podcast bubble has burst a little bit, as you say, the money is just not there anymore. A lot of the industry, whoa, this is getting real inside shop talk, but, folks I think can bear with us. A lot of the industry creatives like myself who are inside of public radio stations, we breathed kind of like a sigh of, wow, we missed out on some of the amazing expansion and like fun and sort of like high flying times of the podcast industry, but we're in this like really stable, relatively stable place that is dedicated to mission and less about the bottom line, right? You still have to, make sure you have listeners who support your show. Can I ask about a controversy that you were embroiled in recently?
Absolutely.
Okay, I need to ask you this because it has been rocking my team here at Soundside, and that is that you were on Subway Takes and that you said that podcasts should be listened to at 2x speed. And just for folks to understand this, the Ira Glass thinks that you all out there in the audience land should be listening to podcasts at twice their normal speed. What is going on here, sir? Please explain yourself.
I mean, it doesn't have to be twice speed, but at least 1.7, I would say.
How do you justify this, sir? How do you sleep at night is my question.
Because that way you can hear more podcasts.
Oh.
You can consume more content. You can hear more people's shows. You can hear, like, that's how you get through Fresh Air and The Daily and, Search Engine and whatever other podcast you're listening to. You know what I mean?
Every single creator in the podcast space has carefully and painstakingly made that audio landscape for you to listen to, and you dare to double the speed. My goodness. I'm just
But it's
saying.
the same proportions of the pauses are proportional. And so when you double the speed, they move at the same speed and have the same impact. Like once, your brain just moves with you into the double speed is all I have to say. Like, can I say, like, I'm somebody who spends like easily a day every week going through mixes and my mix notes really are just like, I'll move something over a tenth of a second, or like I'll start the music like 0.3 of a second before and like just a little bit quieter. Like it's very precise, And if somebody wants to listen to that at double speed, I say, God bless them. They can hear more shows. They can like, that seems great. And your brain can process it.
Okay, I'm going to trust you on that. I'm not a speed reader either. I'm a real deliberate reader and also listener. And so I don't know if like comedy can't possibly land in the same way at 2x speed, does it?
For me, it does. Yeah. Like,
right.
Wait, have you tried it?
No, no, sir, no. I have never tried it. I think it's freaky. It's like chipmunk voices.
But it's not. Well, first of all, like the apps, change the pitch of the voice. So it doesn't turn into chipmunk voice.
Oh,
it's
it
just
doesn't?
the same voice.
See, I don't even know. I've never changed the speed.
Yeah. They figured out, like, we can double the thing and then we'll take down the pitch so it still is the same pitch. So everybody sounds the same. I feel like we're talking across a generational divide because I'm so old that my early radio work was using reel-to-reel tape, and so because that's how you could edit things. It's before sound was in computers, and so basically you would cut the tape with a razor and then you'd tape it cut.
When I started, we had reel-to-reel machines that I had to learn to clean, but then I never used them again. So that's the in the early 2000s, that was the divide. Yeah.
Okay. So, but in the 80s, okay, when I was like a little sir coming up as a tape cutter at All Things Considered, basically in order to, if you think about the problem of you have like a 15-minute interview, which you have to cut down to 4 minutes, and the interview was done at 3:00 and it's going on the air at 5:00, you don't listen at regular speed. It takes too long. So everybody, like without exception, you can like throw a button on the playback and the whole thing runs at double speed. And basically we did all our editing at double speed. We did all of our listening at double speed because you could get through the material faster. And so for a whole generation of us, we just grew up used to double speed. And for us, it sounds the same as regular speed.
I I'm sold just simply because I have to be, because if anybody knows, it would be you. I mean, we talked a little about generational divide. I just have to say before we go that, my generation coming up in audio, we all just thought of This American Life as the promised land. Like that was the gold standard of where we could eventually maybe hope to aspire to the kind of work that you do and what you've created there. And so getting to speak with you has just been a total thrill. I've been telling people all day that I had no business at all sitting down to this interview. And, before we go, I'd just love to hear, from you, how you keep yourself and your team interested in, because again, the rest of us in this industry still think of you as like, that's the juice. That's where we want to go, and I wonder how you keep it fresh, how you keep it interesting week by week, and when you've been on the air for 30 plus years.
I mean, my answer is going to be so banal, but the fact is like I'm attentive to what is exciting to me. Like stuff is happening in the world that seems really interesting to be talking about. And like honestly, like we make radio shows. So I feel like, oh my God, we can do a story about that. Like I feel like in a very childish way that has not changed since I was 20. I just feel like, oh my God, that's a story right there. Like let's do that. Like I feel like that. That's it. I don't have anything more complicated to say than that. Like I just feel like, like we get to make a thing now. So I mean that's primitive, but it's true.
But ultimately, that's what you need, right? To be a journalist at all or to be in this industry is like that excitement. And it's amazing to see you still like carrying it and projecting it and empowering other creatives in the industry. I'm just so grateful to you for sitting down with me, Ira Glass. And I hope folks will show up and really have a great time at the Mount Baker Theater in Bellingham on Saturday. Thank you, Ira Glass, EP and host of This American Life. This has been a thrill. I really appreciate your time today.
So nice to meet you.
Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.